Hello, welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host, Perry Brown, and we have a Formula One race to review this week. Yes, finally time for Formula One to begin, the start of a new era. And it was an early one for us Europeans. I got up at 3 o'clock, then watched a race, then went back to bed. I've got back up. Yes, that's why I look a bit jaded. But joining me, I'm very glad to say, from the other side of the world, yes, he was at the racetrack today and looking a lot fresher and a lot more sun-kissed, it must be said, is Richard from CNK Motorsport. Richard, how are you doing? Generally, how was being at the race?
Good, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned sun-kissed, because while you're knocking the sleep out of your eyes, I'm trying to get rid of the sunburn and all that sort of stuff from my face. So, no, really good day at the track today. Obviously, a lot better than last year where we had jackets and umbrellas above us. It was a pretty wet start to 2025, but this year, happy to say it was relatively blue skies all weekend, and another good start to the season.
I think that's what a lot of people had on their wish list for this first race. You know, we've got a new era of cars. We really wanted to see a dry race and how each of the teams performed against each other. And I'm glad to say we got exactly that. So I think no further ado, then let's just get into it and start breaking it down. But I, for one, absolutely loved this new era. I know it's got a lot of hate straight away, like from preseason testing, from some of the drivers as we're getting to. But I mean, just overall impressions, first of all, Richard, was yours the same? I mean, people talk about the noise and things. You were there at the track, as I say. So what's your first impressions of this new era?
Yeah, I think, look, at the very start, you've got to knock off a lot of the comments, the negative comments you're hearing. And the drivers have got every right to say it. But from a fan point of view, you've got to allow this season to progress past one race. It's got to be 2 or 3 races in before we really start making an overall summary of these new regs. As far as the noise goes, I've got no complaints. Okay, I grew up in the V10 era. I adore the V10 era. But as far as V6 turbo era is concerned, these cars sound great. Where I was seated at turn 4 this weekend, so they come through the heavy braking turn 3, past us at turn 5, then they're a little bit off throttle into turn 5. The cars sound amazing. If it wasn't for the V10 V8 era, you'd have no problem with the way these cars sound. Compared to last year, I personally don't think they sound any different. They definitely don't sound any worse. If anything, off throttle, they sound a little bit better. So overall, this is what we've got. We're not going to go back to a 3-litre V10 revving at 20,000 revs. So let's be happy with what we've got.
And I think the main thing is, when we look at last year, we had, I was going to say 3, we also had Renault in the mix as well. Let's not forget. But we had 4 engine manufacturers. This year, we've acquired Audi and Ford have come back. Honda are sort of now actually a Honda, not just a badge on someone else's engine. I mean, it's attracting the names. That's the thing. And Cadillac will eventually produce their own engines. So mainly, you know, as fans, we can like it. But if the manufacturers are backing it, then they're doing something right. So ultimately, I think manufacturers are happy. As you say, us fans have just got to lump it. And I as I say, I really loved it. So it's great that it sounds good on track as well, or at the track, I should say. So yeah, excellent. So let's get into it then. I've got qualifying down as the first thing to talk about. I want to get into the race. I want to break apart the race. So I'm just going to hit the talking points from qualifying. And I guess the first one has to be Max Verstappen. It caught eyes, didn't it? You know, Q1.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It did. What did you make? I mean, I think I don't remember reading whether they gave an explanation as to what it was, but it looked very much like something in the engine, not a Max Verstappen error. He doesn't make errors, right?
He exactly right. Like he doesn't, especially into a braking zone when the car's running straight. He doesn't put it off into the kitty litter. That's not a Max Verstappen issue. I did read pretty quickly it was a MG UK issue where it just locked. Nothing's been confirmed, and teams are never ever going to blame it on a supplier or a team issue. They're always going to say it's the old hydraulic failure. You know, we're looking into it. We need to analyze the data, etc. But that you could categorically say that was not a Max Verstappen issue, without going too far forward with today's race. But similar to Oscar Piastri, these aren't driver errors. These are attributed to the new regs, you'd think. But yeah, when he went into the wall, or went into the kitty litter, then into the wall, that was a big wow moment for quali, and it kind of takes that sting out of the tail to those last laps in Q3, because you haven't got that Verstappen factor there. Having a look at what Hadjar did, I think it's safe to assume that he probably would have been in around P3, P4 thereabouts. So I think you can say that it even though today was a 2-car battle, it is definitely going to be a three-team battle, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, seeing Hadjar in third was really, I think, the most impressive performance that we saw in that session. But we can't not talk about the Mercedes domination, as it were. They got everything correct on those laps. I think Anthony probably
nearly everything correct. They left a cooling duct in, so they weren't exactly perfect.
True. Yes. Apart from leaving cooling ducts in cars, which Norris very gratefully went and said, "I'll knock that off the track for you," which exploded beautifully. I forgot about the cooling ducts. Apart from that, Mercedes got everything absolutely right, and I think that's quite ominous for the rest of the season. Leclerc was talking about it after the race as well. Like, look at Saturday, because do you think then Mercedes are going to have that kind of advantage in every race going forward, or do you think Melbourne just suits the Mercedes?
Yeah, look, I definitely think I agree with everything you've said there. They're definitely going to have an advantage, but Melbourne did sort of come into play and suit where they're at. Look, they're going to be strong. We've gone back to that era where they loaded the car up with the Bahrain sand, I think, at testing, and probably showed maybe 80% of what they've got. But we also saw that the Ferrari's got the pace to go with them. All right, they couldn't blast them off the track today in outright pace. The Mercedes definitely got pace, but if F1's taught us anything in the last 15 years, a lot of these tracks will suit some cars, and then other tracks are going to suit other cars. So, we've got Suzuka coming up in 2-3 weeks' time. I think China will be similar to today. And then I think after Suzuka, we'll have a bit of a better picture of, the Ferraris seem to like the corners. I think I read here today that the McLarens were quicker in the straights, the Ferraris were quicker in the corners. So, you're going to look at Baku where the Mercedes are going to fly away. And then you're going to have other tracks like, say, Suzuka, where these high-speed corners, maybe that's where other cars will come into play. So definitely they got off to a great start. 1-2, you can't beat that. But let's just wait and see. I don't know. I don't think we're going for a 2014 season just yet.
No, I'm glad you've referenced 2014 as well, because a lot of people go, "No, they're slower than 2025," and it's like, it's the end of a rule set versus the start of a rule set. I mean, this wasn't anywhere near as bad as 2014. I remember 2014 getting started. Like, preseason testing was like, who could do 30 laps? That was a good day.
Yeah. Yep.
They've all hit the ground running. I've been super impressed. And even today, after seeing the race, everyone was sort of saying we're going to have, I think Martin Brundle predicted 12 finishes to the race.
Yeah, every car was going to finish in the points, I think he said. So, correct me, I've only been going off track stats, but I think we had 4 DNFs today, something like that. So that in itself is a positive start. And you had the 2 Aston Martins. All right, they were 5 and 6 laps down or something, but they finished the race. Remember last week they were going to do 1 lap and pull out. So
I was going to talk about Aston Martin next. You've led beautifully into that. So well done on that. You professional podcaster, you. Yeah, absolutely. It's whether you count Aston Martin as having finished the race or not. Stroll crossed the line, as you say, some 15 laps down. I mean, they turned it into
it was
a test
15
session,
in the end. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
but they're still there. So, I mean, what I think Newey said early on in the week that Alonso could do 25 laps before the vibrations got too many. Well, he definitely did more than that today. You got to remember, like you say about the rule set being the first year of rule set, these are the best engineers in the world. Most of these could step across to aeronautical engineering any day of the week. These are smart people. They're going to, by mid-season, I don't want to say come back and watch this podcast, but I guarantee by mid-season, all these kinks are going to be ironed out. We're going to be going back to the same cars doing the same things, and we're going to be in for another cracking season. And Aston Martin are going to be up there as well, I think. Newey's too smart of a man. He's not going to have another MP4 18 moment, put it that way.
Oh please, I sort of hide it well. I'm very unbiased. I'm just more unbiased towards McLaren in a big way. But yeah, absolutely. The development race this year is going to be huge. Is going to be mega to watch over the season. As you say, hopefully people will still be watching this podcast in Baku. But
I don't think it's going to be all doom and gloom like we've said. You know, there's going to be dips. There's going to be ebbs and flows with teams. What McLaren finished 40 seconds off the pace today. That's not still going to be happening midway through the season. Do you know what I mean? Like we're gonna that arms race is it's already started. You know, it's Ferrari aren't going to get those starts like they got today every race. Mercedes aren't going to just skip off into the distance. If you're a new or casual fan, especially if you're a fan of this podcast, stay tuned. We're going to be in for some good things happen this season and some unpredictable things. What's better in sport than unpredictability?
Absolutely right there. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Absolutely seeing this all go on. I think, as you say, the other teams are going to sort that start out. The other teams are going to sort their race pace. I think we even saw, if we talk about Lando Norris's race just there in isolation for a second there, I think we even saw a driver and a team learning how to race midway through the race.
Yep.
He seemed to struggle at the start, just didn't get it. By the end, he's holding off Verstappen.
Yeah,
and outpacing.
And that's the thing I was watching. Obviously, at the track, you're sort of fairly limited with the amount of data that you can take. And I'm sort of watching on my phone, but I love watching gaps because that tells you a true story of when drivers are pushed, etc. And Norris was keeping Verstappen at bay, but he wasn't slipping too far away from Hamilton either in front. Like the leaders did have that gap, but you go from, say, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hamilton to Norris, those gaps stayed fairly consistent for the last 20 or 30 laps. So that in itself tells a story of teams learning throughout the race as well, I feel. So, all right, the gaps weren't coming down, but they weren't stretching out by the end of the race. Norris is nearly getting lapped in fifth, you know. So by China, I think we're going to see a totally different outcome in terms of where the teams are at with their own selves.
Absolutely, yes. I think I posted about it. So there was a gap from Hamilton in fourth to Norris in fifth of 25 seconds. And I said, well, we were talking all pre-season about the top four teams, and there's your gap in some of those teams, apparently. And Behrman was 11, I think, 12 behind Verstappen. So I said, actually, this midfield are really close, forgetting, of course, that they just made their second pit stops. And that lead quickly grew out to 40 seconds. So there is still that top four team battle, if you like. If you put a Hadjar in there, if you put a Verstappen not starting towards the back, and you put a Piastri back in there, sorry to bring that name up, I think we've got to go there next. I woke up, I went downstairs, we were talking about it before. The first I hear about this is Martin Brundle goes, oh, there's Pat. And not being a cricketer or knowing anything about cricket myself, I thought he was talking about Pat Fry. And he goes over and talks to this tall guy instead that looks very much not like an engineer. It turns out to be Pat Cummins from the Australian cricket team. And he goes, your guy's not starting today. And I went, you what? Excuse me? Like, I've just got up at 3 a.m. You're telling me one of the McLarens is out. And then I go online and see it. But, I mean, you were going to be there. You were saying that you were sat right in that corner.
I should have been right where he went off,
Talk to me about that turn 3, 4, 5 sequence.
So, all right, I don't know if my mum will watch this, but I had to go catch up with my mum in the middle of the track, and we're both standing there watching the screen. We're like, first of all, we're like, oh, wow, the one Aussie is now gone. And B, I was sitting right there 5 minutes ago before I caught up with you. So, Mum, if you do watch this, I should have been watching that. Look, you can edit that out.
I'm keeping it. Absolutely keeping it.
Good. She's a big fan of the show, by the way. It's amazing. We seem to. I don't know what we've done. The Australian public have done something to the racing gods, but I think it's going to stretch me here. 2017, Daniel Ricciardo didn't make the start in a car that was capable of podiums, race wins. Last year, Piastri goes off while he's in second. This year, why can't we get a podium? We've had Mark Webber was in a championship winning car for 4 years. His best result was fifth. Ricciardo had the Red Bull that was capable. Piastri's got a McLaren that's capable.
Ricciardo even finished on the podium
second,
and then got disqualified.
2014 he finished second and got disqualified. And handed the podium over, but he did get to celebrate on the podium. But yeah, Mark Webber's 2002 fifth in the Minardi is still one of the best finishes by an Australian. And we've had a driver consistently racing since 2002. So we've had Webber, we've had Ricardo, we've had Piastri, Jack Doohan. We've had all these drivers, and yeah, we still get handed DNSs before they even make the grid. So that's crazy. It takes you back to Verstappen in Hungary, where he hit the wall pre-race. I think that was, I'm going to say
I think that's
2019,
2021.
2021, was it?
21. I thought it was the championship battle.
Was it championship year? Okay, yeah, I knew he was in the hunt, but it doesn't happen very often. Like, you see the backmarkers kind of do it all the time, but a home race favourite, like, all right, if you go and have a look at the race, Piastri was never going to win, but there was definitely a fourth or fifth, and maybe someone else drops out and there was a third there for him. It's such a disappointing way to start the season and your home race. It's starting to get beyond a joke. Racing guides, if you're listening to us, just give us something. You guys get wins all the time.
home race wins we got last year. I think a few people were saying, Norris won Australia last year, and they said when we got to Silverstone, they said, please give this one to Piastri, and he crossed the line first there as well.
Mate, I think that's still a sore point for Australians, the way he backed up the what was the penalty for not sticking up close enough to the safety car. So yeah, that was crazy.
Moving on very quickly.
Looking forward, not backwards.
I mean, it's funny you talk about your mum. I'm keeping that in. I'm also gonna say that I've just about forgiven my mum after she sent I'm pretty sure I've said it on this podcast before. She won a competition to go to the MTC, and she sent my dad and my brother instead of me. Mum, if you're listening, as I say, just about forgiven you. So, Richard, you got a few years before you're forgiven, and if you are listening, Mrs. Churnside, it's lovely to have you listening along, and don't hold it against him. There's a little bit of a grudge, but next year you might just stay in his seat and catch up with you after the race.
I'll get her on the phone instead.
So that sequence of corners, it's very easy to get up on the curb, up on the power, especially in a car. In a new engine that you haven't driven and raced in anger before. It's so easy. We've seen so many cars just drop it, and it looks like it takes like 20 seconds, I swear, for one car to get from the right side to the left. It just happens in slow motion. You just feel that wall is just never going to come, and then suddenly it hits and you go, oh, it's such a silly one. And I honestly, everything goes out to Piastri, how he's going to recover from that. At least the next race is next weekend, and a sprint one at that, and hopefully he can bounce back. And a quick word, if you don't mind, sorry, I know you're sort of eager to jump in. A quick word for all of the fans as well, like yourself and just everyone alongside you. As you said before, the air just came out the stadium, as it were. They all stuck around. They were all cheering. They were all having a fantastic time. None of them were like, oh, well, he's gone, so we're going home at this point. So yeah,
I think one of the things we've been so far away from the motorsport hub of Europe and all that sort of stuff here in Australia is that very rarely do crowds leave a Formula One race early, even if it's just the most boring race. No one seems to leave. Like we do, we really love Formula One here. Liberty, if you're watching, we could really do 2 races out here. It's a long way. You're out here. Let's stay for 2 weeks. It's getting back to the 3, 4, 5 complex of corners. I was sitting there this weekend. I was there last year. I do tend to like to go down there. It is a pretty good section. I'm a big Ferrari fan, so I was obviously watching the Ferraris very closely through there. And Hamilton and Leclerc were on that curb all through practice, all through quali, and today through the race. And I'm like, boys, can you just move that over 1 meter? Like they were. If you can go through and watch the race again, the exit of 4 on that curb, they were right over it and they're bouncing off it. I'm just like, having watched Piastri, having seen some big stacks there before in the past, I was waiting for that almost every lap for a PU failure or something, just because of how aggressive that curb can be. And a lot of the other cars were nowhere near where the 2 Ferraris were, but all weekend. So they're clearly confident that the car can take the bumps. So I guess that's a good sign. But that was very noticeable sitting where we were, because the cars were directly going away from us where we were sitting. So there are some good observations. The cars through there, they sounded great. I seem to think, and data will probably prove me wrong, they seem to be a lot more off throttle from 3 to 4 this year, whether that's a clipping issue. It just seemed visually they seem to be almost 70% throttle there, whereas in the past they're taking that flat. So I'll have to go away and do some research on that. But whether that's an effect of the new regs, I'm not sure.
It's the section just before, like the 2 long straights at the back of the track. I can imagine they're just trying to get even 5% of battery extra through there is going to pay through the rest of the lap. So that was really interesting. We got it towards the end of the race, watching at home. So you'll have to go and watch it now. You've got to go and watch it back. You do get some of the battery graphics coming up. And there was a point again when we were watching Norris versus Verstappen, and Norris depleted his battery all the way. And Verstappen had about 30%. And you watch over the rest of the lap, Norris try and recover as much as he can to get back up. And you watch the gap as well come from like 1 to 1.2 to 0.8. It was, honestly, as someone that loves the data and loves all that side of it, it was fascinating to see. Again, I'm not going to buy into all this. Oh, they shouldn't be harvesting. They should be racing at 100%. Like, if that's your mindset, go and watch a 100-meter sprint and then go and watch a marathon. And then tell me the marathon isn't as interesting because they're not running as fast as the other guys.
Yeah.
2 different races. So Formula One is what it is. It's the quickest way to cover 300 kilometers. That's that. And if that's what this is, then that's what this is. So
that's the way. There's no point complaining about it. That's what we've got for the next 2-3 years. So understand it, see what the drivers are doing it. And the one thing we love doing as Formula One fans is complaining about everything. Just enjoy the show. Like, this is still the pinnacle of motorsport. Just enjoy what we've got. I would like to see more of those graphics because there were let's talk about those first 5 laps. And there were more swaps for the lead in the first 5 laps than I've seen in seasons. That was brilliant. But there are times where just Leclerc would just go off and overtake, and then 2 corners later, boom, they're going past again. And you can see it from some of the helicopter, the aerial shots. A car just stops mid-corner and another one goes through. So if that's what we're going to have for the year and it's consistently going to be like that, that's what it's going to be. So yes, it's going to be great to watch, but just get used to it. That's what you're going to have. There's no point complaining about it.
That's exactly it. No, I thought that was that opening battle, that opening salvo between Russell, Leclerc, absolutely phenomenal. There was again a graphic that's just gone out. I've just shared it on Threads actually, where F1 spoke about last year we had 45 overtakes. This year we had 120, nearly 3 times as many overtakes across the race. I thought most of those were in the first 5 laps with no DRS. Exactly. And all the comments were people going, but they're artificial overtakes. And as you say, no DRS, which I thought was one of the most artificial things. You give the car behind a tool that the car ahead doesn't have. Even with this boost feature that they've now got, as you were saying just then, Russell would get back past Leclerc. Leclerc would retaliate, not just on the next lap, but immediately. So it wasn't the be all and end all to have boost.
That's where I think with the DRS, you watch a guy cruise up, it's second behind, and say Barcelona, for example, as soon as they go around that last corner, you go, well, he's got him. He's just going to get him. Whereas now that lead may change twice down the length of the straight. So, all right, you've just gone and used all your goodies, but I've got some more goodies for the next corner. So, I used to love the old days, and I'm an old head, so I can say this: the old days of the stalk and hunt of so Senna and Mansell, or even more modern times of Hill, Schumacher. Modern, it was only a couple of years later, but you know what I mean, like the Hackett and Schumacher, where they'd hunt each other for 3 laps and then they'd pounce. We're almost going to get that in the same sense of, well, you've used your battery, I've still got a little bit, so then now I'm going to use mine. So not so much the hunt and prey, but it's going to be a lot more brain put into when I deploy, and do I deploy to extend or do I deploy to overtake, to defend? It's new tools, new excitement. So I'm on for it for now.
One of the best things about it for me was, as you say, we had Leclerc jumped off the line. We'll talk about that start in a second. Leclerc jumped off the line, got straight into the lead of the race. Russell's then fighting with him. Hamilton didn't have the best start. Antonelli didn't have the best start. So they had to recover. But what I was fascinating to me, what I loved, once they did get up to third and fourth, they caught up. Now, normally there's a field spread. And by the time there's like a 5-6 second difference, day's done. You're not going to recover that.
Yeah.
Here, they were able to cover and make it a 4-way battle, which I thought was brilliant. I think that is a good omen for good racing coming up the rest of this year.
You have a look at it, Antonelli went from second off the line to seventh, and then back to third within maybe 5 or 6 laps, something like that. That is fantastic. And that means that midfield battle, so we've got our top 4 teams, then we've got a mid-4 teams. There's 8 drivers there that are going to be fighting like hell for those remaining points positions. So there's going to be so many little subplots throughout this race and season. And yeah, Antonelli proved that today. You know, you get stuck in 6. You're not stuck in a DRS train for starters. You're not stuck in a mid-pack battle where you're not going to go forward. He catapulted. Hamilton catapulted for that. Look, there's going to be blokes in 10th that can get up to second in 4 or 5 laps. That's what it should be like. You shouldn't be doomed after 3 laps to just sitting in a train going around. So I think it's going to make for some interesting races, some exciting races.
Definitely. Yeah, that's one thing, actually. That's a good point. They didn't see any DRS trains. We're used to seeing about 10 cars in a row, all unable to make moves, but we didn't see that. So again, another fascinating part of today's race, and that's only going to improve as the teams and drivers learn what they're doing. So let's talk about that start then. So we had Hadjar starting third behind the 2 Mercedes. You had was it Norris then on 4?
Norris was 6th.
Leclerc was 4th.
Yeah, hang on. It was Russell, Antonelli, Hadjar, Leclerc. 5th was Hamilton. 6th was Piastri. 7th. So Norris was 7th, but started. No, sorry.
The 2 McLarens were ahead of Hamilton.
Yes.
We
sorry.
should know this.
Yeah, I know. We're the experts, right?
Glad we prepared for this.
you did say before, we're just 2 fans. We're not ex-pundits. So, but Norris did also have Piastri out of the way first, so he did get a spot sort of off the line straight away. But I think Antonelli's quoted as saying he had no battery at all to start the race with, so he was just a sitting duck. But Leclerc, or he had 50% or something like that. But the way Leclerc cut the knife between Hadjar and Russell into turn 1. Like there's a lot of, I hate the saying, but there's a lot of a lot of hopes and dreams in that move. But you know, it takes 2 to execute an overtake, the one doing it and the other one to partake in it. But Hadjar played his role perfectly. But that start by Leclerc was unbelievable. Like more of that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a comment mid-race that someone said that it does kind of make qualifying a bit redundant, and maybe that's something we'll talk about at the end once we've reviewed everything else. But it did make me think that, you know, they said no matter where these Ferraris qualify, they can expect to be first and second, and they kind of showed 4th and 6th jumping up as high as they did. Hamilton didn't quite get the exit from turn 1 and out of 2 that he may have liked. He kind of impeded Norris a little bit, and he got jumped by Lindblad. But there were some other good starts in there as well. As you say, the 2 Mercedes, I think they said they had 0% battery off that line. That's how hampered they were.
That's something that's going to need to be looked at.
From third. Yeah, I'm sure they'll go away from this race. You know, they'll be quite happy with their 1-2, but they might have that question to go, why do we have 0% battery on the start? If that's the case, that's not great.
Is that a case of the drivers falling into last year's habits and not flipping through the lap? Like, we're not going to ever find that out. But Ferrari, we definitely know that Ferrari's got that smaller turbo, and that start's expected from them. So in the start, regardless of where they're qualifying, every driver's going to be looking, where are the Ferraris? Where are the Ferraris? So that throws another element of excitement into that run to turn 1 in every track. And some of those runs are a lot shorter. So Saudi Arabia, for example, is a lot shorter of a run than say here, China, those sorts of things. So it's going to be some fun first laps, that's for sure.
China could be very interesting, couldn't it? You've got that little bit of a run. It's quite a bit longer, I think, than Australia. But then the turn 1, 2, 3, whatever sequence you want to call it, that has spirals and ever tightens. You know, if they're battling through there, Cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be
As
brilliant,
well,
especially that long right hander into turn one that sort of never seems to stop. There's going to be 4 cars wide through there trying to get into a 1-car line. That'll be interesting.
Looking forward to it. And of course you got the Haas cars and the Cadillac cars using Ferrari engines as well, so we can expect them in the midfield to get similar launches. So very interesting off the start. People that didn't get the best start, as I said, not Lindblad, sorry, Hadjar got a good launch, but then seemed to catch a lot of wheel spin, I think.
Yeah, that second phase, he sort of seemed to bog it down a bit, didn't he? And whether or not that's because Antonelli did as well, whether or not that was a reaction off Antonelli's bad start. But yeah, that little cluster of cars seemed to, almost accentuate the good start that Leclerc got as well. So
absolutely. There was a really bad start, and we sort of only saw it after the race, I think it was. Liam Lawson completely bogged off the start. I don't know if he got anti-stall, but Colapinto, with the save at the race, had to really dodge past him. Saw him late. Watch the replay of that.
I'll have to get him and have a look at that for sure.
How he doesn't hit Liam Lawson. That's one question. He goes to the right, and obviously there's a pit wall there. How he then doesn't cream it against the pit wall, I don't know. So it's almost 2 saves in one. So
there's a strip of grass there as well. So if he's on that grass, he's losing traction straight away.
Oh, so it's before then. It's literally off the line. So there's just the wall. There's no grass.
Yeah,
there,
right.
Just the wall.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah, go watch that.
I'll go look at that straight away after this.
But it kind of highlights some of the problems that drivers and teams were talking about, with these starts that, if someone gets a slow start, they're going to get a really slow start. So that's something I hope we don't see too much of. I'd like to see Lawson's view as, if he caught anti-stall, because that's a thing that blighted the last engines. It's not a new problem, that. So we'll have to look into that. But starts, as I say, the Ferrari launch is not a myth anymore. We'll see how that plays out. We've spoken about the leading group and the field spread, and then we get to our first virtual safety car, which kind of determines how this opening battle's going to go out, because unfortunately it's Hadjar that goes out of the race at this point. I feel for him. He obviously had a much better Australian Grand Prix than last year. He won't have gone back with his head held low, like last year, going, oh my God, it was my fault. This was purely the power unit letting him down, and he's qualified in third. I mean, this is a good weekend for him. He's been let down by other tools.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what did you make? So we haven't really spoken about Hadjar's performance, but he's now out of the race in this review.
I'm a big fan of Isaac, and despite obviously having the worst possible start to your career last year, I think that the future is pretty bright for him. I think he's got, there's a lot of question marks about him coming out of F2 with some of his radio messages and all that sort of stuff, and he could get pretty spicy in the car. But I think this weekend, the question mark was going to be, having seen Tsunoda and everyone else in the second seat in the Red Bull, how's he going to go up against Verstappen? Now, okay, we didn't get to see that comparison because Verstappen went out in Q1, but he stuck the car on P3. He got into Q3. He's in third position. Let's say Max was in third. Hadjar's in fourth. He's right behind his teammate, if not on his heels, if not maybe even in front. Who knows? Verstappen may have been fifth. I think despite the PU failure, this was a great start to his Red Bull career, not his F1 career, but this season. I think he will take so much confidence out of this weekend, knowing that it's not the same as, Lawson, Tsunoda, Albon, you name it, anyone else that's been in that second seat. I think there's some really good green shoots here for Hadjar, and I expect to see him on the podium, if not sneak a win this year.
I can't disagree. I was recording on the Dirty Side of the Track podcast, and I was asked to give my bold prediction, and this was, I think, prior to any preseason testing. I said, look, they're going to really struggle with this engine. My prediction is 4 different manufacturers are going to get a race win, and one of them won't be Red Bull. And they went, oh, you're ruling out Verstappen. They didn't say Hadjar. They just said you're ruling out Verstappen. But now here we are, about a month or two later, suddenly going, not only could Red Bull win races or look likely to win races, but it could come from either driver. So the big question here is, do we think after one weekend, I mean, I know it's still like a bit of a bold claim, do we think Red Bull have solved the second driver dilemma that's hung over them since Ricciardo left?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And again, we're going to go back to this and look like geniuses in 6 months' time. We're absolute fools. The jury will be out on that if we get them right or not. But I'm going to say yes, they've solved that. Again, there was a lot to like from Hadjar's season last year. I think the latest crop of F2 drivers, Bortoleto, Behrman, Hadjar, Antonelli, I think that's the best crop of drivers we've had since the Norris-Russell boys that have come out. Like this, these guys are all going to be battling each other for championships in maybe 5-6 years. Bortoleto in the Audi, they're going to have a lot better season than what people think. That was not a fluke today. Have a look what Audi's done in motorsport. They're coming, and they're coming hard. But getting back to Hadjar, yeah, I think Red Bull have got two cars in the fight this year, and Hadjar is going to be Q3 just as often as Max is, as long as the car holds up, as long as they've got the tools to fight with. I think for today we were robbed of a 3-car battle for the podium.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was, if not more, as we're going to get into with strategy.
Sorry, three teams. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Verstappen held the fastest lap for a lot of that race as well. I think he might have even got the fastest lap by the end of the race. So he was quick enough. He was quick. And as you say, they had that race leading pace at the end of it as well. So absolutely, I think Red Bull and McLaren, to a lesser extent almost now, are going to get there and make it hopefully by the end of the season, a 4-car, if not more, fight for each of these wins. So as I say, Hadjar breaks down, brings out the first virtual safety car, and I'm just looking at who stayed out. So this is the one where the Ferrari stayed out, of course. Lindblad and Verstappen stay out. So you had the two Mercedes and Norris, they all pit. And I mean, first thought straight away was, well, Mercedes have pitted. Why haven't Ferrari pitted at least one of their cars? Was the big question with this virtual safety car right here. Richard, I'm putting the question to you. You're now the Ferrari strategist. What's the thought process between you seeing the two Mercedes pit and not splitting the strategy and going somewhere different?
I'm glad you asked this question. I'm glad I've also got a hat on, because a lot of my hair did get ripped out when neither of the Ferraris pitted under that first VSC. Now, that VSC was out for long enough for Ferrari to pit, and they could have reacted to Mercedes' pit stop. So I think it was out for maybe 2 laps after the Mercs came in. So if they just wanted to react, they could have done it. Now, by them staying out, I commented to the mate I was with trackside, Ferrari obviously believe the medium suited the Ferrari all weekend. We saw that in Q1 they didn't even run the soft. Q2 they ran the soft, Q3 they ran the soft, and they couldn't go with Mercedes on the soft in Q3. The medium really suited that car. So my initial reaction was, well, of course they're going to stay out. They're going really well on this tyre. They've had the opportunity to pit, but they haven't. So they know more than we do. They're happy to stay on this tyre till the end, maybe pit for a soft and run that home, or wait for the second VSC, pit on the hard, and they've got fresher tyres and they'll take the 1-2. That did not happen. Hindsight is an amazing thing. I probably, in hindsight, would have pitted one to cover off the Mercs, but they had that chance in the second VSC, which came not 5 laps later, I think, when Bottas stopped at pit entry.
It was about 10 laps later. They didn't have the opportunity in this one. So when Bottas stopped and the VSC was called, they were past the pit entry.
I was going to say, they just went past, didn't they?
They did. Because they said in commentary again, they're like, why haven't they boxed? And I said, because you can see they've just gone round. They were on the start straight or first.
It was an aerial shot, and they were just sweeping through when the VSC came out, I think.
And then, of course, by the time they get back round, they close the pit lane. So they didn't have that chance.
So I didn't know that with the closed pit lane, so I hadn't picked that up. But okay, well, that makes sense why they didn't do it then.
Yeah, that's why I focused on the first one. I'm pretty certain, or I'd really hope that if they had that chance, if the pit lane wasn't closed, that they would have taken it. It was just the situation sort of took that opportunity away from them. They said, right, well, we've just got to it's gamble anyway, because that's what they've chosen. Again, going back to that first VSC, by staying out, they've taken that gamble to say, we'll either have another chance or we're just going to do our pit stop under green flag conditions anyway and win the race that way. So it's a tough call as to why they didn't box one of their cars. I can understand not putting both of them in, and I've seen people say, well, they didn't have the Mercedes pace, so they had to do something different. And I kind of disagree with that, because I think after the opening salvo, where you've got the two Ferraris very much with the two Mercedes, you back yourself, right? You go, no, we're doing all right.
And if you have a look again, referring back to the last part of the race, those gaps didn't fluctuate at all. I think the top 4 gaps, I think the only gap that closed was Hamilton on Leclerc. I know I was watching the gap between Antonelli and Leclerc, and that stayed at 9.5 seconds for the last 15, 20 laps. So it's not, I mean, all right, Mercedes might have had something in hand, but they weren't, the gaps weren't creeping out. The one thing I will say about one of the VSCs, and people that know me know I'm not a massive Mercedes fan and I'm a very big Ferrari fan, they closed that gap under the VSC dramatically. And Hamilton even brought it up. How the hell are they only 10 seconds behind us? That's something I want to look further into, because with a pit stop, I think they said on the broadcast, it's 13 seconds you lose under VSC, 21 under normal circumstances. They should have been a minimum 13 seconds behind him, and they weren't. I'm not going to say Mercedes cheat, but
I
think
Hamilton's also thinking that he was right with the leaders, but he could have been like 2 or 3 seconds behind.
Yeah, I also thinking that, but even visually watching, so I take little cues of where the car is when the next one comes through, and Russell seemed to close up a lot on Hamilton under VSC. So
they can there's definitely a trick in there, because I noticed this with Verstappen on Norris later in the race. There was another VSC much later on, very temporarily, whilst they cleared up some debris that came off Perez's car, and Verstappen was suddenly right with Norris, and I thought, hang on, no, he was a bit behind him before that. But I think they can get clever with how those mini sectors work, what lines they take, and things like that. So, and
I think Antonelli did the same thing on Hamilton under the first one as well, because that gap seemed to shrink a lot right in front of us. I'm like he can't be driving on a Delta there, surely. So again, that's just me being a conspiracy theorist.
I love it. I love conspiracy theories, and you're in no way biased.
Put out Mercedes. We know they're cheating. Get rid of them.
That promotes McLaren, so I'm happy with that. I'm completely unbiased. Ignore all the McLaren stuff in my house and mate, all the McLaren stuff.
If you saw what was on the other side of this wall, it's just a sea of red. So trust me, I'm trying to remain very partial here. It's hurting.
So we've sort of covered the main bulk of the race. There was a lot of scraps in the midfield. There's a couple of incidents down into turn 3 as well. I think there was Gasly and Ocon. There was maybe Ocon and Gasly. There was a couple of incidents that were reviewed.
Yeah, there was Lawson and I think it may have been Ocon. They touched coming into 3 or coming out of 3 into 4. There was a touch there right in front of us that happened. It was Lawson and someone, I can't remember who. But yeah, there were. And look, fair play. A lot of them are just rubbing racing sort of incidents, you know. Like, I'm happy for them to be let go. It's the cut across. It's the weaving under braking. It's the dangerous driving that needs to be put out. Not hard racing. I think we both agree. I think everyone will agree that we want to see hard racing. You know, we want to see not guys pushing each other off track, but we want to see them leaning into each other and really going for it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I was going to say exactly that I was glad to see all of those decisions just getting, no further review. It was Lawson going around the outside. I'm pretty sure it was Ocon. And they said, there's no love lost between these two. And I did think Lawson's sort of just hanging it around the outside, hoping to be left room. But under this current regulation set and these rules that they have and these guidelines, he's never going to be left the room that he sort of thought would be left there. So I'm with you.
And neither should he be.
So, and I wanted to touch a little bit on like all of the support races you probably saw this weekend, because there's a huge support, and I'm pretty sure that like the supercars wouldn't have given even as much room going through there at all.
Have you seen any of the supercar support races for this weekend?
Not yet. I know I advertise myself as like watching all sports. My dad messaged me, I think it was like 11, 12 o'clock saying, "You watching the Formula 2?" And I went, "Nope, I'm asleep." Admittedly, I've got it all recorded, all to watch. That's today's activity. I've got the whole day ahead of me.
The F2 race was a cracker as well. Like, just Sol off, man. If he's not bruised and battered after this weekend, he copped some punishing beats all weekend. But the V8 supercars, if you get a chance, I don't know what your streaming, your options to watch over there are, but there's some going to be some busy boys in some workshops this week, that's for sure. Like, there's a lot of wheels torn off cars this weekend. But those boys go for it. You know, they got the safety of a roof and some doors next to them. But yeah, they really let each other have it this weekend. There was some good races. V8 supercars, I've sort of been pretty critical of it in the past, but it's since last season, it's been reborn. I'm actually excited watching it now. It's a pretty cool category.
I think that's perhaps how we first got in touch with each other on Threads or on Instagram, was probably when I reviewed it last year. And admittedly, it's not a series I watched, but then I suddenly said, "Oh, look, I'm reviewing supercars this weekend." And I think that's when you went, "Excellent." And I admittedly can't remember how I watched it. I'm pretty sure it was on YouTube. Like, I have highlights later on. But a bit of a sidetrack there. But yeah, I will be reviewing V8 supercars at some point this year. I really enjoyed it, and just enjoy any motorsport at all, but I love the differences between them, which is why I was like, look, when you put touring cars out there, you can't expect to be given that racing room. So yeah, the incidents that we saw in Formula One, I just think they're just saying, "Oh, we'll just hang a wheel there and hope it won't get hit." It's right that the FIA just let it lie, I think. So I think they got everything spot on. Dare I say it, I think the FIA have absolutely nailed this weekend.
Yeah, and it also sets a precedent going forward that these are the rulings we're going to make. So it allows the drivers to drive to the way that it was officiated today. I'm happy with that for the rest of the season. You know, no one wants to see 5-second stop goes or time penalties and all this sort of stuff. You want to see races race and you know, let them sort it out on the track. I hate time penalties and all that sort of stuff. It takes away from drivers wanting to make the move a second time.
There was another funny graphic you have to go back and watch. Colapinto gets a penalty for a start line infringement. They didn't say what it was, whether he jumped the start or wasn't in the right place. But the graphic that comes up at the top banner, it couldn't fit Colapinto stop go penalty. So it said a Colapinto and go penalty.
That's you know that meme's going to be used for the rest of the season now. When everyone gets a stop and go, it's going to be a Colapinto and go. It's
absolutely.
And the internet doesn't sleep on that.
No, it does not. Yeah, someone asking the question whether that's exclusive, whether everyone has to suffer a Colapinto and go penalty.
That's just what it's known as now.
So that was brilliant. Again, I haven't seen any like discourse as to why Colapinto got that penalty, but that was the only one we saw.
Was it a jump start, like or even a like a mechanic there too long or something like that? Like, I know
it just says
there's been a few of them.
Start line infringement.
Okay.
Like start line procedure or something like that. So
so a stop and go. I didn't even know they were even dishing those out anymore. I thought it was just time penalties now. So bring back the old drive-throughs. The drive-throughs used to be awesome. I used to love drive-throughs.
It's still there. They just, they introduced. They said, "Oh, these drive-through, these stop and goes are far too harsh. Let's have a 5-second and 10-second." And then basically beyond just putting someone in a wall, they're like, "Oh, that's a 5-second. You jumped a corner and you gained a position. We'll give you a 5-second penalty." Yeah. Meanwhile, by the time they've decided that, they've jumped 15 seconds up the road.
They're 6.2 seconds ahead, so it doesn't matter. It's like, that's why I don't like the time penalty. That's why I want to see cars in the pits. Like the old days, they used to have speed bumps in some of the pits. Like, I want to go back to those days where drivers are going to go around a couple of bollards or something like that. The Joker, is it the Joker in MotoGP or Formula E or something like that?
Joker lap.
Yeah, do something like that. That's a penalty. Get your tyres all dirty and,
Richard, we're going to take on the FIA. We've gone from saying the FIA got everything right to saying we're going to take over and suddenly we're introducing Joker laps. But
we can do it better.
It's always room for improvement. Right, I think that takes us sort of to the end there. So I'll run through the order then, your point scorers from this race. You had Russell Antonelli first, Leclerc in third, Hamilton, Norris, Verstappen, Behrman. We haven't mentioned Behrman. best of the rest. He had a fantastic battle with Lindblad through this race. Did you see much of this? Where you were sitting? Did you have a screen you
to
could
be
see?
honest, yeah, and it was getting a lot of screen time. The fact that Russell sort of cleared out a little bit at the front meant that we did get a lot of those battles on the screen. And I don't think our screen was the world feed. So we're seeing almost a GPTV feed. So we've got our own domestic commentators. I'm pretty sure we had our own feed at the track. But yeah, we did. We got to see a lot of the different drivers, and obviously seeing them come past us, you can see these battles taking place and the gaps opening and closing. But really impressed with Behrman and Haas. Really impressed with Lindblad. Overall, I think that mid pack is very healthy this year. I still think we're going to see, for the very first year this year, I'm doing F1 Fantasy, which I've never done. I've held off for this long, but I'm doing this year. And I had big expectations for Alpine. I've been listening to too many podcasts where they've talked them up, but I think they're going to jump up into that mid pack battle as well. So I think it's going to be a 4, 4, and 3. And that 3, originally I had Audi in that 3 with Cadillac and Aston, but I think you could almost put Audi up into a 4, 5, 2 even. The mid pack's going to be good.
So after Behrman and Lindblad, you had Bortoleto and Gasly as the final points playing positions. And I certainly didn't have those as point getters this weekend. So well done to them.
I thought Alpine would have been up there, but I knew Audi were going to go well, or I thought Audi were going to go well, but to score points is brilliant. I'm a big fan of Bortoleto. I think he's doing all the right things. Last year was his learning season. All right, he had a couple of incidences, but he didn't have a lot of rookie mistakes like we've seen in like Jack Doohan and even Hadjar round 1 last year. I think Bortoleto had a pretty good season, and I think he's going to repay the faith that Audi's shown in him this season for sure.
I had him as going regularly under radar in 2025. He was out qualifying Hulkenberg, who, by the way, is no slouch. This guy has put cars on pole position that don't deserve to be on pole position. He was out qualifying him. He was out racing him. He was scoring points. And all the talk was, of course, on Behrman, Hadjar getting this Red Bull seat. He just went below the radar. He's Formula 3 champion. He's Formula 2 champion. He gets his chance and he has absolutely grabbed it. And talking of Formula 1 fantasy, I unfortunately went the Hulkenberg route, not the Bortoleto route. So even I, having spent a year saying he's below the radar, went the wrong way and should have gone with Bortoleto. That will be my first transfer, I think, putting Bortoleto into my team.
I think he's going to be brought into a lot of teams tomorrow morning or whenever the transfers open, that's for sure. Maybe that could be a new side podcast. We're going to be talking fantasy every week.
Absolutely. I'm all on board. I only did it because of Dirty Side of the Track. I was like, I'm going to join it this year. They were talking about it every week. And I was like, I'm going to join and we'll see how it goes. Probably depend. I'll wait a few races, see how my team does. If I'm doing well, we're going to talk about it a lot.
Let's talk about it every week.
If I start to slip and
delete the app.
Yeah, I feel quite good. Not as a McLaren fan, my two teams, my two constructors, Mercedes and Ferrari. Yes, get in.
Oh, good.
Anyway,
very good.
Bortoleto, Gasly round out the points. Classified, but not in the points. We had Ocon in the other Haas. Albon, we haven't spoken about Williams this weekend. One to forget for them, but they made it. They got 2 cars to the finish. Albon in 12th. Lawson, as I say, with that poor start, he'll be looking at Lindblad thinking that's where I need to be next weekend. Colapinto, Sainz had a bit of trouble, and then Perez finished the race. And I think that cannot be understated. The job that Cadillac have undertaken to get 2 cars to Australia, to put them through the entire weekend, to get them on the grid, to qualify them. Hats off to everyone at Cadillac. Brilliant. Unfortunate, as you said about Bottas stopping, but I mean, these things are to be expected. But Perez getting to the finish, as I say, hats off to them completely. And then we had Stroll and Alonso, basically an extended test session. We haven't spoken about Aston Martin, but I mean, as you said, they did more laps than everyone sort of expected from them. So see where they are next weekend, whether the woes continue for them. And then we had the actual retirees, if you don't count them. You had Bottas, Hadjar during the race, Piastri, Hulkenberg, even before it got started. So we've spoken about the new era cars. We'll talk about that again in the future, I'm sure, Richard. But I'm gonna end with the same two questions that I ask every guest that comes on and does a Formula One review with myself. I want your driver of the weekend and I want your highlight of the weekend, please.
Driver of the weekend. It's pretty easy to say. Driver of the weekend. I'm going to go with George Russell. If you've got the fastest car, you've got to put it on pole. You've got to win races, and he's done that. And it's boring, but he did it. A lot of drivers have not done it in the past. So yeah, he was quickest when he needed to be. He was thereabouts in practice sessions when he didn't need to be. He was fastest in quali. I think Q3, Q2, Q1, he was fastest. Boom, wins the race. Driver of the day. There were some great drives, but I'll go driver of the day there. Highlight of the weekend. Being in Australia for a Grand Prix weekend, that's got to be the highlight. It's 365 days before I get to watch an F1 again. You guys can bounce around from England to Spain to Italy to Belgium. You can go to 8 Grand Prix, 9 Grand Prix, 1,000 k's from your home. We can't do that. So I love the Australian Grand Prix. I've never missed one from 1985 to today. We put on a good show. We didn't have any rain. So my highlight of the weekend was just Australia putting on another great opening round Grand Prix, which is where it needs to stay.
I concur completely. There's something that feels so right about Australia opening the calendar. Is how it always used to be when I watched as a kid growing up, and then suddenly we had Bahrain. I think 2010 might have been the first year when it said we're going to go to Bahrain first, and I was like, okay, but it doesn't feel right when you then get to Australia and the order's established. Getting to Australia and not knowing where people are going to be, and it being such a different race to a lot of the calendar as well, keeps the suspense going. I just think, I'm 100% with you. Australia needs to open the calendar every year. Just make that a thing. Write that into the rules that Australia opens.
And there's 450,000 people there. Like, Bahrain doesn't get that people. They don't get the atmosphere. They don't get the people lining up at 4 a.m. to get into the gates on a Friday. That's what we had this year. Like, come on.
Yeah, but they pay more money, and of course that's what the fans come to see is the Grand Prix promoters paying more money to F1. No,
true.
Obviously not. So my driver of the weekend, I probably had George Russell as my third. It was between Ollie Behrman, and I think he could take second for me. I think that was a great drive to get back to 7th place. I'm going to go for Arvid Lindblad on debut, 8th place, solid points. I just think all weekend he was running in third at one point in the race as well.
Yeah,
I just think he had the debut of all debuts. In a racing bulls that's probably going to be stuck in the midfield for the rest of the season. He just nailed everything. He didn't make mistakes. So I'm gonna go there. Probably also another obvious one. I think going for the rookie. If you're not going to go for the race, go for the rookie, right?
I probably went the easy option. You've put a bit more thought into it. You've taken the gutsier route, but I agree with that. I think coming in, I don't think, or we definitely don't understand that the amount of pressure that these rookies are put under. You can almost say that Racing Bulls, it's definitely not a backmarker team. It's one of the better midfield teams. So there's that pressure to perform straight away. And he's beaten a seasoned teammate now. Like Lawson's done 1.5 seasons now. Definitely not a rookie anymore. So he's beaten him and was quicker than him in every session, I think. So that in itself paints a story. It's not like he worked into the weekend and got him on the race day. He was quicker than him out of the box. That is a good sign for him going forward. So great selection.
There you go. And my highlight of the weekend was probably seems obvious, but this era of cars, I don't know. They caught a lot of strays. They caught a lot of criticism for these cars. Seeing that top group go from a 2-car battle up to a 4-car battle, I think is a very good omen. 120 overtakes. I don't care what people say. If they say it's artificial, I want to see cars side by side in braking zones, and that's what the rules are giving me. So I think they've nailed it. I absolutely think that this season is a great time to start watching Formula One. If you're on the fringes, if you're sort of thinking about it, I think now is the time to get into it.
Is there anyone left in the world that doesn't watch Formula One anymore? It seems like everyone watches Formula One now, which I love. But there's going to be 2 camps all year.
there's 3 people in my house right now, and 2 of them don't watch Formula One. So I'm actually the minority in there
Okay.
that don't.
I think my house
No
is
matter
probably
what I
exactly the
can
same, to
do,
be
I
honest.
can't convince my wife and daughter that it's what to do. I joked with them all week, and I said, my alarm's going off at 3:45 in the morning. Am I waking you up as well? And my daughter was like, you do not wake me up at 3:45.
Nope.
Dad, please.
Christmas
Okay.
Day is the only time they wake up that early.
Trying to get them
No,
to bed by 3:45 is a
yeah.
challenge.
But going back to that, I think all year we're going to have 2 camps. We're going to have those that love the new regs, those that hate the new regs, and the ones that hate are going to probably be louder than the ones that love it. But let's just love the sport for what it is.
Do you know, there's 2 quotes here. People hate change, and people fear what they don't understand. That's
Yeah,
where I'm at.
absolutely.
I think people had written off the rules before the cars turned the wheels. So let them hate, and we'll just carry on watching and enjoying.
Yeah.
Should we do that? That sounds like a fair deal, Rich.
That's a great deal. Let's do that.
Excellent. If you've been listening to this, then thank you so much for joining myself and Richard, CNK Motorsport. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, we're ever expanding. We're on YouTube at CNK Motorsport. Instagram's probably our biggest one. We've just recently started in TikTok as well. So they're the main 3 at CNK Motorsport.
I will put all those links underneath as well. So go and check out everything the CNK Motorsport are doing. Lots better than what I'm doing. You actually remember to put videos out, for instance, and remind people when you actually go live and do these things. I've still got race retro from like 2 weeks. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me, yourself, Richard, at CNK. And if you're listening along at home as well, thank you so much. Please remember to do all the usual thing, like, subscribe. As I say, I'm very bad at remembering to remind you when I go live and post the podcast. So if you subscribe, all of your apps will do my job for you and tell you. That's the best way to do it. So get in the comments, tell me what we're doing, tell us what you think, tell us how good CNK Motorsport sounds, and all of the stuff that Richard is getting up to, and we'll have you on again later in the year, I'm sure. But we'll maybe try and catch one of the other races that's at an optimal time. This race is at a good time for you. So as I say, you're looking bright and breezy. You've caught the sun. We'll try and catch another early race for us Europeans.
The start of the season is good. We've got China, which is 5 p.m. for us. We've got Japan, 3 p.m. And then we've got to wait till Vegas in November, I think, is the next time we get a day race. And that's only because it's a Saturday night. So, yeah, we have a long winter down here in Australia, but, you know, we love it.
That's why I cannot get on board with people complaining, saying, oh, God, I've got to get up at 4 in the morning. Yeah, once. As opposed, I think most of the races, is it fair to say most of the races for you actually occur on Monday?
Yeah, well, so we have either at 11 p.m. or a midnight Sunday night start. So they're always finishing on a Monday morning at sort of 1, 2 o'clock. So if you know me and you work with me, you know Monday mornings can be pretty hard going to start with, especially Ferrari have had a double DNF. So
I was going to say 2025, a lot of slow morning starts, but I'd say we'll at some point, Richard, we'll get you back on for maybe. I don't know. I haven't made plans to try. Again, a podcast, I should be like months ahead of planning, but maybe Las Vegas, we'll get you back on for a good one rather than a middle of the night one. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. And as I say, thank you if you're listening at home for joining as well. We'll be back next week for the Chinese Grand Prix review. But for now, thank you and goodbye.